Constructive rest is something that we like to do every day. The Alexander Technique world sometimes call it active rest, sometimes it's semi-supine position, simple as that. And I'm going to show you what that is now. Perhaps not for the people who have joined me this evening, but perhaps for the other people who might see this online. So I've got a little something under my head to allow my spine a bit more ease, and I'm lying down on the floor. You should all be able to see that. And I've got my knees bent and my feet on the ground, and that's why it's semi-supine, not fully supine. The other thing I just want to point out is that the book, which is normally what we use, but I've just got a little bit of a block here, it's not anywhere near my shoulders. So I hope you can see that there's a real gap here. There's a real gap there. And that's important because we want to allow the head to be supported, but also that the neck can release back towards the floor behind us. And I'm on the floor, and I've got a double carpet, so that's why I'm comfortable on the floor. Otherwise I'd have a blanket or something, because you're here for a while and the back of your pelvis will get a bit, it can get a bit numb actually if you're in a too hard a surface. And what you do with your arms is very much up to you. A very classic Alexander Technique position is to place your hands somewhere at the front of your pelvis or front of your hips there, somewhere in the abdomen really. If you have quirky shoulders, it's actually quite nice sometimes to put your hands right up here with fingertips towards the collarbones. So I'm just trying not to hit my mic. That can be really comfortable in the shoulder girdle, as can just allowing your arms out by your sides and letting the whole of your arms just rest there. That can be really pleasant. And clearly I'm loving it because I'm still on the floor. So I better roll on my side and come on up and start talking you through tonight's session. There's probably other things I've forgotten, but anyway, that's the gist of it. So each month I like to have a bit of a theme, and the theme matches the classes that I teach, the Alexander Technique for yoga teachers and the regular Alexander Technique classes. And last month was balance. And this month is the pause. We're looking at the pause. So in the world of the Alexander Technique, nothing can be done without stopping what you're doing already first. So at the moment, you're all lying on the floor, probably thinking, I'm not doing a lot, so there's nothing much to stop. But in fact, there's a whole load of stuff going on in your nervous system, in your musculature. And this pause is about you bringing yourself into a conscious awareness so that you can stop gripping in your neck, so that you can stop tightening in your shoulders. So we're going to think about that a bit this evening. But the first thing I want you to do is pause and be aware of the ground beneath you. The nice safe feeling of having your feet on the ground, the left one and the right one. The feeling of your heavy pelvis resting into the ground. Notice how your pelvis sits. Maybe you can't feel the very top of the back of the pelvis. Maybe that's a bit pulled up off the ground. That's fine. That's probably just the shape of you. Let something soften within your belly so that the muscles around the pelvis aren't holding on, aren't pulling you away from the ground. Notice the weight of your own shoulder girdle, and include in that the upper arm bones. You could even let the elbows rest into the ground. And then up here at the top of the spine, There's your head poised and balanced on top of it. Or are the neck muscles pulling your head into the top of your spine? Is there a bit of tension there around the top of the spine? Sometimes we can hold that tension by getting a bit starey in the eyes. So I'd like you to either close your eyes briefly and open them again, or be very interested in what's going on in your ceiling, what you're looking up into. So interested that in fact your eyes maybe look around a bit, gently noticing. Probably the odd cobweb or two. That's what my house is like. Releasing the eyes. Releasing the eyes helps the top of the spine also release deep inside your head there. Softening the tongue in your mouth and asking for your jaw to release. And that's the hinge of the jaw. You might want to think of it being just at the front of your ears, the hinge of your jaw, not gripping it, not tight. As if your back teeth, the upper molars and the lower ones, have got a little space between them. Don't grit your teeth. And then we're going to take our awareness further down the back. I want you to be aware of the spine between your shoulder blades. Be aware of it. You don't need to do anything with it. Just become aware of that space, that bit of you, the spine between your shoulder blades. You could even picture the inner edge of each shoulder blade, the closest edge towards the spine. Get that sort of thought in your mind, just really knowing where that space is. You don't need to do anything. Just see it in your mind or know that it's there. And then you're going to send a message. You're going to ask for the muscles around that piece of upper spine to release. And it is like sending an email within your own body. But actually, it's probably more reliable. So send your thought, I'm releasing between my shoulder blades, muscles between the shoulder blades. And whether you can feel it or not, that email will get there and something will change. Maybe not this time, but maybe next time, maybe the time after, but something will change. So we're asking for something to release in the muscles between the shoulder blades, around the upper spine in your back. And when that area releases, you might notice that something ungrips a little bit around the armpit area, or you may just become aware of some tension in your armpits, and you can ask them to undo and release a bit. And then we're going to add on a much more positive Alexander Technique direction. I'd like you to think the tops of your arms away from each other. And again, nothing doing, no sneaky shuffling or shifting. It's a thought. And the more you can pause and leave the arms alone, letting them have their weight, a softness through the upper arm muscles, the more that pause can happen, and then you think the tops of your arms away from each other, the more profound that direction will be, widening the upper back. Let's go back to your neck. How's that feeling today? Has it been a stressful day? Have you been sticking your chin out in front and leading your life with your chin poking forwards? Perhaps you've been gritting your teeth against all sorts of injustices in your world or in the bigger world. Let's ask the neck to release, softening under the chin, all the way down through to the collarbones, the top of your chest. You could ask the collarbone muscles all the way around there to soften and be easy. But you can also think of those collarbones lightly moving away from each other. So we're not doing something. In fact, we're not doing something. We're saying I'm going to have a lot of softness in the front of the neck and a lot of softness and ease in the upper chest. But you're sending the message, you're thinking that the collarbones release away from each other, as if, in fact, each bone kind of lengthens out towards the tops of your arms. Just so you know, bones don't lengthen, you know, I know that. But sometimes it feels as if there is a lengthening, a releasing, as if more space is coming within our own body, more space in the upper chest, more space around the breastbone. The other place that you'll find space is between your breastbone and that upper piece of spine. And you really don't want to do anything here either, but perhaps have a little bit of an idea, an image, a thought that there's distance between your upper spine, there lying, resting between the shoulder blades, and there's distance between there and your breastbone. And of course, you know that in your mind, intellectually, you know that. You don't need to be an anatomist, in fact, to know that, you just do. But sometimes we forget it and we start to tighten through the chest and we start to pull the chest in towards that piece of spine at the back of us. And we're not going to do that today. We're going to say, no, I'm going to free off my armpits, let my collarbones be free, and think the breastbone forwards to the ceiling, away from your resting upper back. So we've thought quite a lot now about the upper part of your body, and it might be that you're feeling a little bit grippy or something's going on in the lower half of your body and you think, oh, I really want to shuffle and move my legs and I'd quite like to perhaps rock my knees from side to side or do something. And you know what, you can in a moment, but what I'd like you to do first is to put in the pause. What I'd like first from you is to say, I'm not going to move my legs just yet. I'm going to think a few directions first, as if you were taking the handbrake off your body, as if you're taking the handbrake off your hips by asking the tops of the thighs to let go. Thinking the tops of the thighs widening. It's like taking the handbrake off, ready that the thigh bones could then rock to the left or right, if that was what you fancied doing. Putting in that pause, giving yourself a directed thought, and then making a small movement. Give it a go. And it is a small movement. I mean, probably I couldn't even see it, you know, even with my ginormous TV screen here. We're saying, I'm not going to grip through the thighs or around the kneecaps. I'm going to think of lovely long thigh bones resting down into the hip sockets and lengthening up through to the kneecaps. And then you can let those lovely long thigh bones rock from left to right. You might notice that it's a slightly different way of moving. And of course, if we were to do this every time in everyday life, we'd be the slowest people in the world. But what's really fortunate about this work is that it gets quicker. So that you can say to yourself, I'm going to ask my neck to free. I'm going to release something around the top of the spine, perhaps the jaw, maybe the eyes again. Asking for some sort of freedom around the neck, perhaps the base of the skull. And then very gently, a micro movement. After you've paused, you've thought your direction, you can rock your head slowly from side to side. So you're pausing so that you can think an Alexander direction, pick a thought, anyone's a good one, and then you allow yourself to move. And it would seem very slow and very laborious if that was how we did everything at this pace, but I promise you it gets a lot quicker. So often when someone says, notice your breathing, our brain goes down towards our ribs or some part of where the lungs are housed, and we start doing something peculiar and a bit funny. We hold our breath, or the pause doesn't turn into a pause, but more of a stop and grip and hold. And that's not what we want. Our pause is like an open space, a vast open landscape in front of you with multiple choices. It's a greater awareness of yourself in this moment. So rather than think of your breathing, I'd like you to pause with awareness of your rib cage and allow that rib cage to expand and release, freely moving in any way that it does for you today. Perhaps your rib cage moves a lot at the front. Perhaps the lower front ribs move quite a lot when you breathe. That's fine. But maybe what might be comfortable for your body is to think again about the area where your shoulder blades are resting, the backs of your armpits and that upper back area. And without doing anything, not forcing anything, you could say, in your pause, you're not going to grip your arms or your armpits, but you're going to think of a widening upper back and see if that allows for the rib cage to move a little bit under those shoulder blades, like a wave, moving in and out on the shore. So next time you're in a meditation or in some sort of relaxation and someone says, be aware of your breathing, perhaps taking your mind into that moment of pause to give yourself a choice, a gap, and make your choice with an Alexander technique direction. In my pause, I ask my back to widen. In my pause, I allow my neck to be free. I'd like you to say hello to your feet again. There they are, resting. Do they feel easy, connected to the ground? You don't need to do anything. Maybe as soon as I said think of your feet, there was shuffling and wiggling, and for me it's always toes uncurling. Oh yes, uncurl my toes. But let's just let our feet connect into the ground. Let's allow our feet to really rest. The base of the big toes, the ball of the foot, they're just under the big toe, on the left foot and the right. In that moment of awareness, you can think your way across the front of your feet to the little toe, the base of the little toe, and allow that to rest into the ground. Not doing anything, not shoving or pushing or anything like that. A nice resting. And then you could add on your Alexander directed thought of widening through each of the fronts of your feet. Sort of flowful spreading across the front of your feet. And maybe that feels then that your feet are quite well connected into the ground. Those front of feet really there in your mind. And then we're going to pause and say we won't do anything with the heel bone. We won't do anything there at all. Nothing happening around the back of the foot. Just an empty, big space where we can then put our own thought. And you can think your heel bones back away from the widening fronts of your feet. That can be a really lovely feeling. As if everything's undoing through those feet. Bring your mind all the way up to the other end of your spine, back up to that head resting on your books. How's it feeling? Do you have an awareness of the back of the head? Is it feeling heavy? Is it feeling as if it's being pulled into the ground or being pulled away from the ground? Or is it just lightly resting on your books? Which is it? Give yourself a pause. Ask for something to release. And without doing anything, without pushing or shoving, just think your way out through the crown of your head. Almost as if there's a flow of energy that moves out through the crown of your head, away from your resting feet. So as always, the time has flown and we are now nearly at the end of the session. And this is normally where I say, oh, if you want to stay on the floor, you're more than welcome. But it would be more interesting, I think, today to let's get up to sitting, but not yet. Because guess what? We'll all need to pause first. And then you're going to say to yourself again, oh, I'm going to roll over and get up to sitting. But don't do it. See if you can notice within your own body that charge of movement energy that comes when we make a decision to do something. This drive that sends us forwards. And rather than falling into that, rather than saying, oh yes, off we go, here we go, let's go. Say to yourself, oh, I think I'll take a moment. I think I'll take a moment and I'll free my neck and really let the pelvis rest back down on the ground. I'll really let those feet stay planted to the floor. And I'll start to inform my body in a gentle way that we are indeed going to roll on our side and get up, as they say in Cornwall, directly. And then you can choose your point of reference. Where's it going to be for you? Would you like to release your jaw and let your head roll from side to side with your thought of a widening back? Or would you like to ask for something in the pelvis and the lower back or the belly to release and allow the knees to start to move their little journey, rolling from side to side? You choose, because it's your body and you'll know which bits grip on more than others. It might be as simple as just saying, you know, I'll let go in my jaw, soften my belly, and think of my legs. And in your own time, listening to your body as you go, you can make your way over to your side and then up to sitting. Because the Alexander technique isn't a just on the mat sort of practice. We need to take it with us everywhere we go. And it's one of the reasons why we tend to encourage practicing with the eyes open. That, and of course, it does keep you awake better. Nothing like nodding off in your semi-supine session.